Well, I grew up on the southeast side of Chicago, just west of U.S. Steel. My father was a steel worker. My uncle was a steel worker. My grandfather, my great grandfather, and my great great grandfather when it was in Joliet. So we were all steel workers, and that's what I did when I graduated from high school. And I learned that I would rather do anything than work in that steel mill. It smelled of rotten eggs, sulfur. Um, it was very dangerous. I was told by my cousins that we're all in Korea, don't enlist unless you have to. If you don't get drafted, enlist. But if you do get drafted, two important things. When the drill instructors say, we didn't want you, you wanted us, you can turn around and say, you wanted me. And leave it at that. He said, it kind of slows him down a little bit. And he said, instead of serving 3 years in the Army, you only serve 2. And then you can decide, do you want to make it a career or do you want to get out? Well, I knew I wanted to get out because I had just met the love of my life, on August 1st of 1965, and I was inducted on November 15th, 1965. God bless her, she wrote me a letter every single day. I was always into sports, so I was in pretty good shape. So the physical part, we went on long marches, and at the end of it, we did do a bivouac, which is you go out in the woods. And now this is in Killeen, Texas, which is right close to Waco. And the night we went out, it was raining like crazy, and we still had to do our marching and all, and we were soaking wet. And one of the drill instructors said, if you're smart, and all we had was a sleeping bag. That was it. And he said, if you're smart, take off all your clothes. He says, and it was getting cold. I mean, cold. And he said, put that in the bottom of the sleeping bag, and by morning, it'll be warm and dry. He had served in Korea, which was very cold. And I thought, makes sense. Myself and a few others, that's what we did. The others, boots and all, they were dead tired. They got in the sleeping bag, and they were all sick, and we weren't. So you learn, you better listen. There's times where you have to listen. Then I went to Fort Meade, Maryland for my advanced training. I was given my MOS, my job, and it was to be a combat medic. So right then and there I thought, I'm not going to be working in a hospital the whole time. I got training on the wards. It was IVs, taking blood, what to do in certain situations, and your aid bag has clamps in it so you can clamp off things. And if someone has a gunshot wound, we used to call them GSWs, and they call them that in Chicago here too. So, and they can't breathe, how to put and there's a V, right? All you kids out there, there's a V right here. And you put a tube down in there, and then they breathe, but not through their mouth or nose. And so I was very careful to do that. And just other things, how to address wounds properly, how to get others that aren't injured as bad to help out, just tell them what to do, because there isn't only one that gets injured. And the times that I had to go out and get somebody, it was often the point man who was all by himself, and a sniper got him. And if the sniper got him, guess who's coming, because nobody else is going that way. We got to Vietnam and they did a photo op thing for us. We had to get off the ship, and then we came in on another type of vehicle, and I don't know what they call it, maybe like a duck or something. And they brought us in close to shore, and then we marched in like D-Day. And so off we came, and then once we got there, we were on the beach, and it was close to Cameron Bay. You know, soldiers and that were at the beach in their bathing suits, and we were marching in like we were going to get fired upon. It was ridiculous. And then we got on to, we call them trucks. I know the Marine Corps calls them personnel carriers. And off we went to our base camp in Xuan Loc, which was Central Highlands. It was just north of Saigon. We started going out on missions.
Talk about that a little bit. What were some of the challenges you faced? How did you confront them?
Yeah.
How would your training prepare you well for what you experienced?
Training was excellent. It was excellent. It changed my life. When I left the Army, I went in a young guy that was good at sports, having a good time, didn't care that much about school, just sports. And when I came back, I was ready to do what a man is supposed to do, not a crazy kid. So all my training was fabulous. And so we got there, and like I said, got established. Took turns doing the all-night shift at the medical tent, and then, like I said, we started going out on missions in armored personnel carriers, and didn't take very long. We were firing into the jungle just to see, at nobody in our training, and one of the sergeants had what's called a cook-off round from a 50 machine gun, and he got done firing, started to move, fired a 50, and it tore one of the guys I knew, tore his arm off. And so I got there, and we got a landing zone, and off he went. He was talking to me, and I had the bleeding under some kind of repair, and he died of shock on the way to the 93rd evac hospital. And I think that at first I was like shocked by what is going on here, and then I think it hardened me, because the next mission we went out, and it was an ambush, and the point man got injured, and so I went out to get him, crawling on my belly, because the sharpshooters, they really don't miss. Their weapons are very well calibrated and everything else. And at the time, I was in the shape of my life. I was more slim than I am now, by far. And I looked at him, and his wounds were not that bad. I think he was more scared than anything else. But I said, stay down, can you crawl? No, I can't crawl. I said, well, put your arm around my shoulder. I'll crawl and you'll crawl, and we'll get back. And we did. I knew I could depend on everybody around me, and they knew they could depend on me. My name was no longer Joe, it was Doc. The doc knows. And when you're there, there's a lot of sickness a lot of malaria. There's a lot of infection because the hygiene in that country was god awful. And you're just day to day, small cuts getting infected, and then, monitoring them, and hopefully you did a great job and the infection doesn't do any spread, and people getting sick, just sick like sick, And the temperatures were quite hot, quite humid. It was very tropical. There were monkeys and there were elephants and there were. A friend of mine was in a different unit. After I talked to him, and he was attacked by a tiger there. I thought, monkeys. Once you're in the jungle, there's nothing but monkeys up high, and they throw things at you. Not good things. So it was like we had gone to Mars or someplace. We went into a village that was at the base of the Tainan Mountains, and I don't remember the name of it, but the head of the village was a woman that looked to be in her late 40s or 50s. She was in charge. There were a few old men and all women of different ages and little children. And went in, and through the interpreter, Captain Landry said, "Well, where are the young men?" "Oh, no young men here. We have no young men. No young men in long time, years. And she was scared. And he said, "Where did these babies come from? Where did these pregnant women come from?" And her eyes got like egg yolks. And we were there, what's the captain gonna do? And the interpreter as well. It's like, what are you gonna do? And he just stood there and started laughing. And then everybody started laughing. And then finally she started laughing. And it was like, we're stuck in this thing. We're stuck in it together. He knew they weren't going to say where their husbands or lovers were. They were up in the mountains hiding. They come out at night and maybe visit the village at night. So we kind of all knew. He told me, he said, find out if any of the little ones are sick or the older ones are sick. He said, we're going to spend a little time here. And I did. And there were some sick ones. And I did what I could for them. And then I think he did what he could do for them as far as helping out, they don't have medical care. They live hand to mouth. They raise rice, which is a very hard thing to do. And then it gets stolen from them by the VC and by the North Vietnamese when they come. They just take it. It's a war. But he stayed a human being. He didn't allow himself to fall into the crazy. December 14th of 1966, we went there in 66. I was injured. I got a shrapnel in my chest, and I had a scar here, but over the years it's tanned and it's just kind of this flat thing right here, and I had little scars from it. And so I was sent back, and I was at the 93rd Evac Hospital, and after a few days they sent a chopper and brought me back. And then I believe it was January 3rd of 67, my foot got crushed. And that was, the first one was the first Purple Heart. The second one, they said, "Do you want a Purple Heart?" I said, "No, I don't want a Purple Heart." Well, about 6 years ago, I got my medals, and it was another Purple Heart. So, got 2 of them. And they sent me to the Philippines, so I knew I was leaving Vietnam. It's a great load off my shoulders, but then I'm thinking, who's going to be the medic? And the head got goofy a little. And the Philippines said, we have to take his foot off. But they said, we recommend that he go to Yokohama, Japan, an Army doctor there. It had infected after it got injured, and really bad. He found the infection finally on the fourth operation. He said, you want the good news or the bad news? This was after the operation, because he was going to take it off if he didn't. He said, you still have your foot. I said, that's great. He said, we have to open it up for the next month or two or whatever it was, and let it drain. And it drained out, and I got physical therapy, and finally I was sent to Andrews Air Force Base. When I left, we were heroes in '65. When I came back, and I believe it was possibly April, something like that, we got to see protesters and signs saying baby killers. And he's like, what am I walking into here? Got out on November 14th, 1967. Got an opportunity to use my GI Bill. And the late Mayor Richard J. Daley, the older Daley, had a program for disabled and disadvantaged veterans that were from Vietnam. And I worked a half a day as a teacher's aide at what was Gothel's EVG Center in Chicago, which was mainly African Americans that were fresh up from the South. They were older, but some of them had never been to school. It's hard to believe in the 60s, but that is how it was. And some of them were 18 years old, and when they got here, and they had to be taught things like colors, reading ability. Good people. I mean, good. I mean, wanted to do well. Family wanted to do well. They came up here, and it was start from scratch. I got my degree there, and was living a decent life. Got married in St. Patrick's Day, 1972, to Suzanne, who's in there probably peeking. I know my daughter Sarah's looking at the whole thing. She couldn't believe it. and from there, within a year I had my master's degree. It's a funny thing when you're in an active war. The people that you think are big and strong and tough, they were tough in high school, they're not that tough in the real world. And the ones that you thought were pushovers, they'll stand behind you. So I hear about bullying in schools. It's been around forever. I'm fogged up again. They, in later life, it takes time, but don't give up, because, you know, they're weak. The strength is from within. And if you're strong within, you know, they can push, they can shove, they can do this, they can say this or that. But pursue what you want. And yeah, that's one thing that really stuck with me from the military. Right now, there's a lot of things going on in this country, but we live in a wonderful country. We have advantages that others around the world do not have. The third world, they're just surviving, and they're most of the population in the world. Volunteer. Do things. Don't just play video games or watch TV. I didn't play video games, but I was a pinball wizard. That was time I could have spent better, more profitably by. And if you want to go in the military, well, God bless you. Know that it's a difficult job, but it's a necessary job. And just think, what can I do to help my community? What can I do to help people that need help? And they're in some sort of desperate situation. And I'm not saying money. I'm saying get involved. And to me, that's public service.